It's time to discuss some more Gears of War eday news, and we're gonna get into some juicy stuff in this one. As always, I'm your host Abz, and let's discuss boss fights, enemy introduction animations and cutscenes, a PS5 leak, and much more, so let's get into this. Now this news that I've been alerted of comes from a level designer working on Gears of War eday at the Coalition. He has his portfolio listed on his website, and here he's given us an understanding of his role on the game design, and it's given us some really interesting details which I'm gonna dissect. Firstly, his job role is being responsible for the complete design, content and scripting from beginning to end for multiple levels, chapters through the entire first act, along with key mid and the final chapter of the game. The first bullet point under his job role states, level design and scripting for each level in Unreal Engine 5, establishing player paths and enemy routes, combining use of specialized spawning and animation systems to present enemy entry into the encounter, as well as for story presentation. So let's dissect this. Player paths and enemy routes. This, to me, kinda signals that we're going back to the linear gameplay that we know and love, and I'm sure this was expected anyway, and definitely a W. But the next sentence for me alludes to having specialized spawning and animation systems to present different enemies into the game. For instance, emergence holes, or a rager or a boomer or whatever enemy is spawning in, and how they will enter, or should we say spawn on the battlefield in their own unique way, and how that fits into the lore for the story presentation. For instance, the emergence hole erupting from below and how that presents itself in real time in the world. The second bullet point is a big juicy one because it tells us how the environment will be reactive to gunfire, explosions and so on. So there'll be destructive cover, which is huge and something that has never really appeared in Gears before in a major way, and is something many of you guys have wanted, which we discussed in our massive Gears eday wishlist video. That's going to be really interesting to see how that could possibly play out with different types of cover, but dynamic environment interactions could also hint at objects in the environment that you could use to your advantage. For example, the TV that we saw Marcus use in the trailer, which was absolutely amazing to see. Branching paths to give players meaningful tactical choices on how they approach encounters could refer to having different paths open up by using the environment, or paths that are open if you use a stealth approach for instance. But if you go guns blazing, then extra paths could become closed, either by enemies spawning in or the destruction falling onto that path and blocking it. That's my guess anyway, and if I'm correct then that's some really interesting stuff. This next bullet point, to me, is in reference to, for example, the environment telling the story in real time without it going into cutscenes. For instance, the destruction of the world around you in real time, and hearing the locust, the civilians, the Gears reactions and so on, so you don't need to constantly go into cutscenes to tell the story. The player will just be immersed into the world of Sarah falling apart on Emergence Day. The level designer said, "Excited to work on one of my childhood favourite series, one that got me interested in third-person shooters, and changed my perspective of shooting gameplay since." This quote to me is exciting, knowing that this game developer is a big Gears fan and grew up playing the games, and is excited to work on the game, so I'm really happy to see that. This next paragraph is really insightful, so I'm gonna read the whole thing and give my thoughts. It states, "I've worked on the first, final and middle portions of the game. I have developed, iterated on and designed portions of the game from the very first moments the player experiences when they start playing the game. Progressive introduction of enemies to facilitate player learning, and also involving myself with supporting the narrative and cinematic moments to all play together to provide a sense of a theatre of war. Beyond this, I was also working on some of the boss encounters and several different type of enemy encounters that each presented the player with a unique combat puzzle." So, to break this paragraph down, it explains how Gears eday will introduce enemies progressively, so the players will learn how to deal with these new merciless and grotesque enemies, not just from a player perspective, but from a lore perspective, since this is Emergence Day. These relentless monsters have emerged out of literally nowhere, and the Gears have not seen anything like it, so I think the Gears will progressively fight the enemies throughout the game. Not for instance the game starting, and you're going up against a freaking berserker straight away. So it will probably start with emergence holes, your standard Locustrones, wretches and so on. and then as you progress through the game, you encounter the more formidable locust, like the Theron guards, the boomers, the blood mouse, etc. Then hopefully a lot of new enemy types, since the coalition did hint at that previously. So I am positive that new enemy types and even new weapons will appear in Gears eday, so I'm really excited for that. And of course it mentions boss encounters. Does that refer to the usual berserkers, brumacs, corpses, etc? Or will they throw in some spice into there in the form of mini boss fights, in terms of high ranking locust officers? I'm not sure, but I'm looking forward to it, and it's definitely also an opportunity to bring forth some new beastly hollow creatures as well actually, so definitely a lot of untapped potential. Finally, this developer's page also stated that Gears of War eday's platforms included PS5, but while I was creating this video, it was actually removed from the website, so that's strange, but I do think eday will come to PS5, given the multi-platform push, how Gears Reloaded is coming to PS5, and so on. Unless Xbox only put the older Gears games on PS5 and keep eday on Xbox, which I doubt, but you just never know really. Only time will tell, but I think it's very much likely that eday will come to PS5 as well. But yeah guys, that's a roundup of these interesting details on Gears of War eday being seen on a developer's profile, giving us a possible insight into Gears of War eday, boss fights, enemy introductions, destructible covers, the PS5 leak, and much more discussed. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and subscribe for everything Gears related on the channel. Also, a big special thank you to those that support me further as always. I'm your host Abz, and I will catch you guys next time.